As Lugano Conference for Recovery of Ukraine stated, and I like this statement very much, building back better. So in rebuilding and improving Ukrainian higher system of education, we would need all help and all potential contributions from everybody.
We've had a lot of stories of how universities helped in evacuation, or of the support programs, not just financial or humanitarian, but also psychological support or legal support that universities provide for the academic communities and also for the more general community in the allocation.
Hello and welcome to Ukrainian Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euro-Atlantic course. I'm your host, Varvara Shmigalyova. In today's episode, we'd like to discover roles and challenges of academia during the war. Universities and academic community are not the first thing that comes to mind when you think about the military action. However, this industry involves a significant amount of people. For your understanding, as per data from 2019, there were 281 universities, academies, and institutes, alongside of 338 colleges, technical schools, and schools that had the status of higher educational institutions in Ukraine. And Russia's full-scale invasion harshly disrupted the educational process in all of them. Some universities that were closer to the front lines, or that were specifically targeted and destroyed by Russians, such as Karazin University in Kharkiv, had to relocate. Others that were further away continued their operations to some extent. But everyone was impacted, if not on physical, then on psychological and cognitive levels. Russia's aggressive war definitely had a negative effect on quality of education. If you want to find out more about this subject, please continue watching this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our videos in the future. We spoke to the prominent professor Maksym Yakovlev, director of the School of Political Analytics of National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy. Please listen to his reflection on Ukrainian higher education system and the challenges it faced due to the war.
Ukrainian higher education system faces a number of challenges, namely, of course, the war and destruction of many facilities of the universities that are under either physically attack by Russian troops, that were under occupation or that are presently under occupation, and from the territories that Ukrainian state has to evacuate students, university instructors, professors, and all others. So this is a great challenge. Second challenge is, of course, that many people, especially those who are now children and schoolboys and schoolgirls, who would like to apply for higher education next academic year, they are abroad, and this is, of course, understandable because they had this threat they had this threat for the physical safety, and they're abroad, so we might in the future suffer a problem of not having enough people to fill in all the gaps, so to speak, and to provide all the universities with enough students. Next problem is, of course, the financial resources, and that's why we do need additional assistance and help from our foreign partners in terms of sustaining the capabilities of many universities and local communities, for which universities are also highly important. That is also extremely important for us. Many Ukrainian students are studying abroad using the mobility frameworks and schemes. But for the future, it's also important to know that we also need these students back, at least so not to lose many of the Ukraine's bright young people who are abroad. And finally, I would say we need more cooperation in improving Ukrainian system of higher education. As Lugano Conference for Recovery of Ukraine stated, and I like this statement very much, building back better. So in rebuilding and improving Ukrainian higher system of education, we would need all help and all potential contributions from everybody. So basically, it's not a problem as such, but for the future, we have to think how we build our higher education system better, making it more attractive for foreign students. More students come to study to Ukraine, and we get back those Ukrainian bright students who left Ukraine to study abroad, gain new experience, new knowledge, and we would definitely need to create for them circumstances and conditions in which they will be able to come back and contribute to Ukraine's further development.
Next, I'd like to introduce you to Osypchuk, Scientific Director of the School of Political Analytics of National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy. and the head of the project Universities Under Siege, Challenges of the Ukrainian Higher Education System After the Full-Scale Invasion of Russia into Ukraine. We'd like to share the finding of this research with you. However, following the scientific approach, Anna would describe the scope and the methodology they used first.
In the scope of our research, we've done focus group and interviews with the administration, students, and professors of different universities in Ukraine. We've done interviews with 10 universities, with the representatives of 10 universities, and focus groups. For focus groups, we also divided them into categories. So we've had 11 focus groups with students and 4 focus groups with professors, both relocated within Ukraine or displaced within Ukraine, and those who evacuated outside of Ukraine and then probably returned or stayed there. And also, of course, majority of students and professors were those who stayed in Ukraine. We tried for our groups to be as representative as possible of a general academic community in Ukraine, and also represent the categories of universities that has been relocated, universities that had been closer to front lines, and for example probably were often shelled, or those who have been more rarely shelled or more or less remained intact, for example in the western part of Ukraine.
This research is very important since it provides us with a better understanding of a significant role of the universities as social institutions in particular. Anna's project looked at social mission of universities as hubs, how they unite and support people. Research also discovered evaluational difference between various groups of people, students, professors, and administrative personnel. Moreover, it outlined the challenges and possible solutions to them on a personal and institutional levels, and surprisingly concluded that experience of operating during COVID-19 pandemic was actually helpful during the wartime. Please listen to Anna elaborating on mentioned discoveries and more findings of their research.
I will sum up the main findings, and the main thing which I probably have to say that what comes pronounced out of these interviews and focus groups is that there are a lot of stories of human experience and an emphasis on building a community, and not just academic community, but also of so-called social mission of the university, of universities as a social community, and their role they played for universities as hubs, let's say, for if we are talking about relocated universities, for people from those cities or those regions at the universities, and how they support people in the places where they operate. We've had a lot of stories of how universities helped in evacuation, or of the support programs, not just financial or humanitarian, but also psychological support or legal support that universities provide for the academic communities, and also for the more general community in the allocation. What also comes to is that we've actually witnessed the process of reflection, how people reflect on their experiences. For example, we asked about the interruption of educational process in March, and then how this educational process was renewed. And for example, both students and professors emphasized how at first they were against it, because cognitively they felt that they couldn't cope with any work or couldn't do any research. But on the other hand, when the process actually have been renewed, that they reevaluated their attitudes, because that was something that provided normality, that's something that provided support, and often psychological support, that's something that provided also this feeling of needness of doing something important, because a lot of people said, and that both for students and both professors, that they felt that they have their own educational front, not just a real military front or volunteering, but also there is this kind of educational front. Another story was of international relations or international aspect. What we actually found that on a personal level, there hadn't been much difference. So mainly those people who always kept a lot of contact, they continued and kind of developed on those contacts. Those who were not interested in international mobilities or international projects didn't change their minds. But on institutional level, we are witnessing the flourishing of international contacts. Another, of course, important topic was the relations between relocated universities and universities like so-called host universities. And here the evaluation difference between students and professors and administrators. Students and professors had, on one hand, they had personal evacuation stories. On the other hand, they usually were very positive about the new locations. On the administrative level, we had more variety of opinions. So we have more different evaluations. So there could be mentioning of some problems, which is natural, because that is normal when people have problems or have some disagreements, especially when they want to. There is a new university coming into a new place, and there is another university hosting. That's natural that some disagreements appear. But on the other hand, I find it very important that even if there were disagreements or some problems, it didn't really transfer to students, or how students felt, for example, or how professors felt in majority of cases. Another important question had been for professors, of course, and on the administration level, is financial and the so-called bureaucratic side of the process. And what we've witnessed, or what actually people told us, is that while the university tried as much as possible to retain all the obligations, especially financial obligations, it hadn't been, of course, always possible. But on the other hand, where universities varied in attitudes, it's for those people who either stayed on the occupied territories or moved outside of Ukraine. And here we see the different policy. One universities were more intent on keeping these people and, for example, allowing them to participate decently. So it didn't matter to them that they stayed outside of the reach, let's say. For the other universities, that was a very important point, and they actually told people that they have either to relocate or back, or relocate to a certain location, or they will be put on a leave. But this second type of practice haven't been widespread. It's a rather exception in general. Another question that has been about the vision for future, and we actually asked a kind of evaluation of educational process and quality of education, and majority have seen the change. The majority mentioned that the drastic change occurred during the times of COVID and a pandemic, but not not later. So mainly when people talked about the quality of education, they mentioned that everything changed before the war, and then we've kind of get better with this distant education practices or online education practices. On the other hand, of course, people and all our participants mentioned the how they sometimes struggle with timing issues. For example, they do have a lot of obligation, volunteering, family obligations, and work or studies, and of course it's harder to negotiate all these obligations, so there's less time for studies or for work or for research, for example, in case of professors. And also they mentioned the emotional and cognitive side of that. And although a lot of people mentioned that emotionally their work has been a support for them, that cognitively it had been much harder to be effective. So, and that these issues, of course, also figure in an evaluation of quality of education in general, as well as the necessity to adapt the criteria of evaluations, let's say, or practices of education to the situation where some people could be out, or some students, for example, out of reach or on the front lines, and also it's understandable that it all has its effects.
You've been watching a special project by Ukraine Media Center and Euro-Atlantic course dedicated to Russian-Ukrainian war, Ukrainian flames. In the description under this video, you can find information on how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video. Glory to Ukraine.